Hi everyone, in our last video we looked at how we can start to really build up our error handling within Power Automate. In step 1 we captured the error. In step 2 we gathered some information about the failed attempt so that we could send an email to a support person with a direct link. But now we're going to complete this story by adding into that email some of the error information so that they know what they're coming into without actually having to look at the flow history. So the whole purpose of these videos has been to try and help us to establish a good practice, being able to help the support people who are going to be in place looking after our productionized flows. So we're going to complete this story now by adding in just some contextual information into our email to help go alongside the link to the failed run, so we can provide as much information about the failure as we possibly can. So here's the flow as we left it in part 2. So I still have a manual trigger. I have a flow which is going to fail each time purely because I'm trying to cast a string as an integer. So it's always going to fail. And what we built up was our support information. So we wanted to provide that link to the failed flow. So I have my fully qualified domain name, capturing some of the workflow information, taking the outputs, and then building it all together so that I have a link directly to that flow run. So all of that was covered in video 2. So what we're going to be looking at now is how we actually go and provide some additional information. So one of the key things that certainly I want to know before I even start going to look at a support issue is, what is the problem? So just having an email saying it's gone wrong with a link doesn't really help me prepare. So let's do something about that. So what I can do within my catch, so remember my catch is going to fire whenever anything in my try fails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in an additional compose, and we're going to investigate a function or a formula called result. So result will allow me to go and see some of the exact issues or the exact result that came out of my try scope. So let's go and add an action, and let's go and put a compose in there. And all I'm going to do is just reorder my actions because I want my compose to go first. And I'm going to compose this as my result. So now I can start to use an expression to find out what the outcome of my try scope was. So if I come to my expression and I type results, now it doesn't actually resolve. So you might be forgiven for thinking actually it's wrong, but it's not. So what I'm actually looking for is a result, and for that result I need to tell it what I want the result of. So it could be that I give it the result of an individual action, but within my scenario here it could be any action within my try scope that's going to fail. So I want to capture anything. So I'm going to capture the outcome or the result of my entire try scope. So what I need to do is, in single quotes, I need to provide the name of the control that I want to capture the result from. So I'm going to type it as it is to start off with. So it's scope-try. But when we are dealing with our formulas or our expressions, I need to replace my spaces with underscores. So therefore I have a scope underscore hyphen underscore try. So it's looking at the result from this action here. So I'm going to press OK on that. And I'm going to run this just because I want to see and capture the outcome that I get so I can start to make something useful from it. So I'm just waiting for my scope to finish running. There we go. So now I can see my error details over here. If I expand out my compose result, then I actually have all of this key information also captured here. And the key thing that I'm looking for is this message, which is going to tell me exactly the same here as what I have on the right hand side. So now I've got something within my flow that I can work with. So I'm going to grab all of that JSON. And because I'm working with JSON, I can take what I've just got from my composed results, and now I can actually start to use it to create some dynamic content. So I'm going to add an action, and I'm going to go and pass my JSON. But before we do, let's go and have a look at what the full JSON payload. So I'm actually bringing back an array because I've got my in my JSON, I've got my 2 square brackets, so that is signifying an array. So I could have multiple coming back, but you know what, I'm interested in one, so I'm just interested in the one that's going to give me my failure. So when we actually go and try and use this, I need to make sure that I'm telling it I'm only interested in the first entry in the array. So it's going to help me to avoid losing or going into some unwanted looping. So I'm going to generate my payload first of all, and I'm going to remove my square brackets from the start. Now I'm going to use an expression, and I'm going to take the first entry that comes back from the result, because the result's bringing back an array, and I'm only interested in number 1. So I can use that, and then I'm now geared up with my parse JSON to actually have some quite good dynamic content for me to use. So let's just parse that. So now when it comes to my email, I'm going to send my email, and remember I'm sending a message going, oh no, it's all gone wrong. I'm sending a URL directly to the failed flow run. So let's just give that a little bit more context. And let's say that in here, I'm also going to include the message. So that was the error message that we saw printed on the right hand side. It's what I'll see when I actually go and look at the failed flow run in the flow history. But I'm giving my support person or whoever is being notified about this flow, I'm giving them as much information as possible before they even need to go and look at it. Because sometimes you can immediately identify what the issue is just by looking at the error message. Not always, there are some of the cryptic ones, but for the most part you'll get it. So let's try it, let's run it. So let's run. Okay, so my run's failed. I've got my results, and I've got my message. I've parsed it, so I've got some dynamic content that I can start to use. In my email, I can see that I've actually got my message being displayed. So that's going to be really useful. So then if I look at my email, I've now got quite a useful message. I've got some good information going into here, as well as a link directly to go and have a look at it again. So now that we've actually seen that, what other information have we got in our JSON that we could potentially use? Well, we can actually use the start and end time, so we can track timings. We can track what the error codes were. We can obviously track statuses. It means we can start to do a lot more with the result. So that really brings us to the end of that 3-part series in how to build up some good error handling within your cloud flows in Power Automate. Think about trying to do this as best practice. Who's going to get notified? How are they going to get notified if something goes wrong? Especially if you're doing something that is going to be used as a productionized flow. Whether it's something that you're doing as a business process that's going to impact people other than yourself. What happens if it fails and you're not there? Obviously you'll have shared it, but you also need to make sure that everybody is aware that things are going wrong, that they aren't working, before everything starts crumbling down in terms of that process. So I hope that was useful. I hope you do start to implement that. I certainly always implement it in mine. If you have any questions, please do post in the comments. Please do like and subscribe. There are plenty more videos on the way. You can always reach out to me on Twitter at MattWeston365 or on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to give you any help, advice and guidance that you need. But for now, stay safe everywhere, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you again soon.